Welcome back to International Hour. I'm Doreen Kays. Mahatma Gandhi called them children of God, but to many Hindus, they're still known as untouchables. They are Hindus born into their religion's lowest class or caste. And although the Indian Constitution forbids discrimination on the basis of caste, the reality is far different both in India and in South Asian communities abroad. And that's something my next guest is fighting hard to change. Yogesh Varhade is a Toronto businessman who was born an untouchable. And as the president of the Ambedkar Center for Justice and Peace, he's dedicating himself to the destruction of the Hindu caste system. He's been lobbying at the United Nations this week. He's in New York City. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Varhade.
Thank you.
Maybe you could just begin by explaining who the untouchables are in India and outside India.
Untouchables are the outcasts of the Hindu caste system who are the fifth class in the caste system. They are the most oppressed, exploited, and downtrodden in the Indian context. The population of untouchables in South Asia is about 300 million. According to UN statistics, they are the largest regional group in the world at the starving level, because the total population of the poorest of the poor in below poverty line is about 560 million according to UN statistics. Now, these untouchables are mostly the landless labor, the bonded labor, the child labor, and their main occupations in the villages are the most filthy: cleaning the latrines, cleaning the streets, carrying the human excreta on the head, carrying the dead animals, and so does also cities. Many of these untouchables are doing all these cleaning and unhealthy jobs.
Mr. Varhade, now under the Indian Constitution, however, it's officially illegal, it's unlawful to discriminate on the basis of caste, is it not? What's the reality as you see it?
Yes, that is exactly right. The caste system has been abolished, practice of untouchability has been abolished in the Indian Constitution by Dr. Ambedkar, the India's first law minister and the greatest human rights champion of the 20th century. But in practice it is thriving. The reason is less than 10% to 15% of the population of India is high caste Hindus who control 80% of the nation's wealth, money, media, power, bureaucracy, police, and judiciary. So they would like to have these free slaves for another 2,000 years, because they already have for the last 2,000 years. And they would like to do everything possible. And since our people are totally helpless, they are barely surviving as a subhuman beings, they are unable to get to the power. And this is why, and our children, who are nearly about 80 to 100 millions in South Asia, India alone may have about 70 to 80 million, that's anticipated. These children have no hopes of living a normal, dignified life. These children are trapped in the slavery and slave-like conditions, which is more cruel than the apartheid of South Asia, South Africa. This is why I would like to dismantle this system and bring some dignity and life to our children who have no escape. Indian Constitution provides all the provisions. International instruments provides all the solutions, but the Indian government, which is run by the high caste Hindus, have refused to implement in practice in the villages. And these landlords, who are mostly from the high caste Hindu population, they have total control of the village system, and they do not want to implement the equal rights for the untouchables.
Mr. Varhade, excuse me, I just wanted to ask you, you seem to be a good example, however. You are an untouchable, and you became an engineer and took advantage of an affirmative action program that I understand exists in India. And of course, the Indian government will argue that it has this. That's how you got your education. Cannot people rise above the system?
Yes, certainly they can rise, only to a very minimal extent, because 80% of the India's population lives in villages. So they do not have any escape of survival in the cities where they are uneducated, illiterate people, and they are kept that way systematically so that the caste system and the practice of untouchability would continue forever. I grew up in the city, but I had a lot of relatives in the villages to whom I used to visit, and I used to observe the practice of caste system where they cannot get a water even, they cannot even touch the water. In the city life, when we go to the university colleges, we have a subtle discrimination, but we can survive that. And I continued under the affirmative action program provided by the Indian Constitution. But the percentage is very small. Even the Indian Constitution provides the senior positions on a bureaucratic ladder, and many times the high caste Hindus who are running the nation, they stop us from climbing the ladders, so that out of the 14.5% of reservations, only about 4 or 5% reservation is filled up to now in 50 years of the independence.
Mr. Varhadi, now the recent election of an untouchable like Fulan Devi, will this not do anything to help India's untouchables briefly?
Yes, our more and more of our independent Dalit MPs are coming out through the election process, but it will take many, many years for by the time our people can really share the power in the real sense so that they can bring the justice. Until that time, our children are dying in thousands and millions around the nation over the next few years, and this is unacceptable to any civilized society. India boasts internationally that it is one of the biggest power, most popular power, and a democratic power. This is totally wrong. It is the system created by the high caste Hindus for the high caste Hindus, and it will continue that way unless the international community comes to our help. It is the moral duty of the world, civil society, to come and help such an entrenched system in the Indian society, dismantling of this apartheid.
Have you been in touch with the human rights departments of the United Nations? What's their
reaction?
Yes,
I have been talking last, I think in fact in 1993 I had a special meeting with Mr. Ibrahim Afal, who was the Secretary General for the World Conference on Human Rights. We brought this issue very seriously there, and they told us that they cannot make the same exception of creating an apartheid of South Asia, that sort of format in the UN, because the previous one, South African apartheid, was approved by the General Assembly, and we have to follow the regular channel. In the meantime, our children are dying and suffering is continuously going on. Sometimes even in the villages, even the women are paraded naked. Look at this society. Is it a civil society or a sick society?
I'm afraid we'll have to stop there, Mr. Varhadi. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.